A while back, I was watching an AngryJoe video where him and his employees reacted to the PlayStation State of Play showcase back in June. Here's the clip.
So, listen, a lot of my excitement was blunted on Spider-Man when it was announced that this is a single-player only thing. No co-op. You had a perfect opportunity, Miles, Spider-Man, and Venom. And I just kind of expect my games to evolve as well. They're just giving me additional story. And it's like, yeah, but that's like what I expect. I expect a new story. I expect bare minimum. Yeah, high quality story. It looks like a movie, basically, like the last game. And that I really like, because it's like we're getting an additional Spider-Man movie in this one that we can play. So, disappointment's starting to fade. Acceptance is coming in. Acceptance. What are the stages of grief? I still want to go up. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Okay, was that it? W on now one. Be greater together, except for not together by yourself. Be greater by yourself. Don't fuck around like that. It's not co-op.
Now, admittedly, I was and still am apprehensive of his thoughts on the sequel not having co-op. Instead, it takes a page out of Grand Theft Auto V's book and makes it to where you can switch between the Spider-Man whenever you want. Back when the game was announced with that CGI trailer, I immediately thought, bro, if this game is going to be co-op, I am going to shit myself. I even told this to my cousin, whom I am close with, and he was like, dude, that would be lit. Now that we have been inching closer and closer to the game's release, I surprisingly haven't been hearing any uproar about the game not being co-op. But AngryJoe is the only one that is notable that has made this complaint after seeing the gameplay reveal. After hearing him make that critique, I have given it some thought, and I am going to attempt to present some arguments as to why this game in particular shouldn't have co-op and the reasons why I figured that it doesn't. I'll also play to the opposing argument and how the game could have benefited being a co-op experience. I'll start with the opposing argument. I think that the game certainly would have benefited greatly from being co-op. Who wouldn't want to swing around the city with a friend and fight crime? I imagine it would be a similar experience to the Saints Row games and a few games from the Resident Evil franchise. Drop in, drop out co-op, a friend being able to help you out if you're in a tough spot in the campaign. Combat would be fun to play and comboing your finishers together. However, unfortunately, this is where my imagination runs out and the negative starts to seep in. I don't think that the game having co-op would help with its longevity because of a variety of factors. Number one, the game being drop in, drop out co-op would be a terrible idea because of individual story progression. This game being as big as it is in regards to story would hurt the overall experience because players would then be able to drop in whenever they want and ruin certain parts of the story, if not the entire narrative. Granted, the developers could add in prompts saying, the host is ready to progress to a certain part of the story which you haven't reached yet, and may spoil the story for you. Do you wish to continue? Something like that. Someone probably could write that better than I can. I know I'm not the only one who is a stickler about story spoilers and ruining the narrative before experiencing the story yourself. There is nothing I cannot stand more than people who proactively spoil the game for themselves before having even played it. And unfortunately, I personally know people who do that. With drop-in, drop-out co-op, you are basically asking for the story to be spoiled for you. This would also be a contributor to the game getting undeserved and unfair criticism. My point is that the game is a heavily story-driven experience, and I personally want to experience the game from start to finish and not have that ruined because I wanted to play with a friend who happens to be further along in the story than me. You might say, well, you could just have him join you or vice versa. Fair point, but you run the risk of having that friend spoil what happens unintentionally. Number 2, the game being drop-in, drop-out co-op obviously would require an internet connection, and that's an issue in and of itself. There's nothing more infuriating than being in a mission or roaming the open world and then BOOM! Connection error, host timed out, player disconnected due to a network error. I don't know about you, but all that would affect my overall experience and perception with the game as well as millions of other people who will play it. I don't care how talented Insomniac is at crafting these games, there will be issues with the internet connectivity portion of the game. Yes, These issues would be ironed out over time, but in the long run, if I were in the business of public relations, I think this move would be bad for business and would hurt their reputation and word of mouth with the public. I wouldn't want any of that, personally, any more than Insomniac Games would. I think that after Cyberpunk 2077 launching in the state that it was in, was a severe wake-up call for the rest of the video game industry. Don't half-ass it. I personally believe the game having co-op would be a death sentence for their reputation. I know it sounds like I'm stroking their collective cocks, but I think this whole argument is dumb to its very core. Number 3. The game being co-op I think is a bad idea in regards to player progression, and this ties in with the first point I made. I imagine the game has abilities for each Spider-Man that are tied to story progression, for example the symbiote suit for Peter. I understand that we have seen loads and loads of gameplay where Peter has the symbiote suit, and we have seen various abilities on display. However, I suspect there are more abilities that they are hiding intentionally that remains to be seen. Same goes for Miles. Now use that same logic for if your buddy, who for example is further along in the story than you, and then uses an ability that you have yet to unlock. Bam! That has been ruined for you and ruins any chance of you being surprised and filled with awe of seeing that ability for the first time. Again, apply all of that for the suits you get to unlock throughout the campaign. The point being, odds are there won't be an even playing field, thus harming the overall experience. If the game was co-op, level scaling would probably work the same way that Elden Ring does. For example, me and my cousin were playing a couple weeks ago. I had a higher level character and he has a lower level character, and he wasn't doing as much damage as I was, and I was doing a hell of a lot of damage. Or take Bloodborne for example, same concept. Me and my cousin were trying to play and I was like new game plus 3 or 4, I can't remember, and he just restarted the game because he just got a PS5 and he wanted to play it again. Was not doing any damage whatsoever in my new game plus 3. Now granted, new game plus, the enemies do more damage, and yeah,
Bro, that was fucking awkward.
Finally, number 4. Look, I'm sorry, but I feel like making all these points are meaningless at the end of the day, because I just don't believe for a second that this game would benefit in any way from having co-op. The thought of it at first sounds like it would be fun and would be a jaunt, but once you actually think about it, really delve into it, the more it just doesn't make sense. In all honesty, you just gotta really think about it. In closing, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is shaping up to be one of the greatest superhero video game experiences of all time, possibly rivaling the narrative and gameplay with the likes of Batman Arkham City and Arkham Knight. Well, gameplay wise for Arkham Knight, I fucking hate the story for Arkham Knight. Anyways, maybe even one of the greatest video games of all time. Why would they put their reputation on the line by taking a risk as big as adding online co-op to a game that is as hyped as the sequel to Spider-Man PS4? I do think that this idea was kicked around during the beginning stages of the game's development cycle, and ultimately we know which idea won out. If I sounded like I was rambling on and making nonsensical points, please sound off in the comments. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and I stand by my points that I made. Good luck trying to change my mind, because I'm pretty much blinded by pure hype for this game, and I cannot fucking wait. Let me know what you think. If you liked this video, shoot me a like. If you didn't, you know what to do.